focus on the fin part of fintech first.
Create a low code platform.
Just find mentors.
But why is it still undone? Is there maybe a problem with it?
Hi everyone and welcome to a new episode of Product Drama Podcast. This is Kate.
And this is Anatoly.
And today we wanted to talk about making it from the idea to the MVP and beyond.
And we have a very special episode today because we have more than one guest. We've invited a team of a fintech startup, Defynance, and guys will tell us more about their journey, challenges, and achievements while developing a product. So, hi guys, welcome.
Thank you
How
for
are you?
inviting us.
Hello.
Thank you for inviting.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, okay, can you tell us more about your project and your roles in it?
Sure, I guess I'll start off. My name is Farouk Siddiqui. I'm the founder and CEO of Defynance. We started the company back in 2018, kind of surveying the landscape of various financial services problems, but quickly zeroed in on the student loan crisis as a major problem that we wanted to tackle. And then we've come up with a solution to solve the student debt crisis without debt. So I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to Sean, who's the first team member who joined back in 2018.
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Sean Lever and I'm currently the product manager of Defynance, but while I've been here, I've kind of taken on every role under the sun. So I'm more of a jack of all trades than anything. And I've been working on, operations, marketing, now product. So just have done a little bit of everything. And I'll turn it over to Akash.
Hi guys, I'm data science lead at Defynance. Similar to Sean, I also worked with in product development initially, and now also working in data science. With that, I will turn over to our new team member, Bill.
Hello, guys. My name is Bill. I'm almost the most recent addition to the team, at least in the development part. So I'm a Python developer / data science part, I would say. At the moment, we are all busy with everything regarding the app, setting everything up, and yeah, I think that's from my side.
Yeah, I guess no MVP discussion could start from the description of the product. Can you guys talk through the idea?
The student debt crisis in the US is over $1.6 trillion. More people have, I think 45 million people have student loans, and the amount of debt is more than credit cards, more than auto loans. It's only like after mortgages. That's how big this problem is. So from that perspective, we wanted to tackle this problem. About 70% of people that leave college have student loans, and I think the average is about $30,000. That's like a BMW 3 Series or something. That's how bad it is. In terms of the debt people walk out of college with. So I'm sort of obsessed with finding solutions that are not based on debt, and we discovered this concept of an income share agreement. An income share agreement is just basically, as it sounds like, it's an agreement to share income for a certain amount of time, but it is not debt because there is no obligation to pay back a certain amount of money. It's just to to share income for a certain amount of time. So we started working on that concept. We noticed that universities like Purdue and coding boot camps were using it, but nobody was using it to refinance student loans.
I'm curious whether it was like some personal story about thinking about student debt, or
it was more about kind of discovering this giant problem. Like, I grew up in America, went to college here. Student debt has been around forever. However, this last 15 years, certain things changed that made the problem. I think student debt has like tripled or quadrupled in the last 15 years. So that for me was a huge revelation too, that how bad the problem had become. And then once you discover a problem and you start looking around and talking to people, then all of a sudden, you start seeing all kinds of people that are even close to you that are dealing with it. So with family members and friends, it just became this thing. And then, I'm a little bit older than these guys. So my kids are in college or getting ready for college. So that also resonated with me in terms of like what they would be facing as well. And I know probably Sean and Akash probably have some student debt issues. I mean, stories for themselves that they can talk about too.
Yeah, it was definitely personal for me just having, I came here right as I graduated with a insignificant amount of debt. So being able to work on that problem and also solve something that was personal was pretty exciting.
Yeah, similar for me. I came in United States for education with my student debt. So I also had that. So it was easier for me to connect with this problem and it made it easy for me to put my all efforts to find a solution for this kind of problem.
Yeah, so I think from my side, the principle of an income share agreement is nothing new because that's exactly how I took my student loan for my master program, and my bachelor was basically for free because it used to be a cooperative bachelor, but the master here in the US, I took a loan for that back in Germany, and the ISA principle was known to me. So that's exactly how I pay my loan back, but it's not fixed by time. It is basically running until the principal is down to zero. That's how it worked for me.
Let's get back to Sean with the initial R&D. Did you do any proof of concept before you actually proceed with the MVP?
Yeah, before we did the MVP, we actually refinanced one person's loan. So we already had our first customer by that time. And it's, someone who was really excited to get rid of their debt. And we worked with them for quite a bit of time to, figure out what the product should look like before we even build the MVP. Because I think that was really important to us is, what is the process like to refinance someone and pay off their student debt before we go and build a platform and then find out, oh, we did it all wrong and have to just rebuild everything.
Okay, so how did you define the scope of MVP later on?
Yeah, I think just having that first customer kind of told us what we needed is we needed a platform that could someone could come on, apply, and get through the whole process of applying and even service their ISA through us. So, that's what we wanted. And now someone can just go through that whole process and see at the end, oh, here's the details of my ISA, how many months I have left, and all that. So it was important to just, give someone a continuous window into their ISA and then kind of try and automate the process that we'd been doing beforehand.
And if you take a little bit of a step back and talk a little bit more about 2019. 2019 was the year where we really, as Sean said, we ended the year with funding the first deal, but kind of building the whole product and the process around it is something that we worked on during that year. And from my perspective, having a background in financial services, it's not always about the technology in the beginning. Like, I think it's very important to build the core finance business. So like some of the things that we did during 2019 was, and Sean and I worked on this, for example, is we worked on the contract. So how does this contract that people execute with us, how does that work? How is it legally enforceable? Because it is not a debt contract, it's an ISA, income share agreement contract, and it's a contract that nobody's really written before, because people that are using ISAs are using them more for student financing, not for refinancing existing debt. So we had to kind of learn from their experience and work on the contract. That's one of the big things that we did. We, as Sean mentioned, we worked out the process. How do you take somebody from the beginning of filing an application, requesting to be refinance their student loan, and taking them through that whole process to giving them options or quotes for multiple options, and then getting them approved and funded and so on. So that's another thing that was done. And then Akash's role in those early days was mainly to start building our algorithm, because with the financial services product, you have to price it, right? And with financial services, when you're giving money out, there's the element of risk, and how do you assess that risk? So kind of working on those underwriting criteria, those guidelines, and then how do we price this stuff was very important. And the final thing I want to quickly talk about is just saying we want to refinance student loans is wonderful, but how do we pay for it? Where does that capital come from? So that was the other equation we had to figure out is, do we structure this like a P2P product where people, like one person finances someone's education, for example? But the more we thought about it, the more we talked about it, the more it became apparent that we wanted to structure it more like a fund. We would get investors to invest in a fund, and we would use that fund capital or that pool of capital to refinance multiple loans. We can diversify the risk for investors and so on. And to me, the cool dynamic that developed during that year 2019, as we were looking at all these different perspectives, is, like Sean usually took the perspective of defending the customer, like making the product as good as possible for the customer. And Akash, he usually took the side of the investor, because we wanted to make sure investors got their returns and we mitigated the risk. So we had lots of interesting discussions and arguments. Well, I shouldn't say arguments, discussions during 2019, where these guys would come at it from their perspectives, and I got to, walk that tightrope to find that solution that makes sense for both sides.
I wonder who covered the legal part. Does anyone one of you guys have legal background?
We had a law firm that we work with on the legal stuff, but I've done product development in financial services before, so I have a decent idea about how some of the legal issues work. But still, you need obviously you need lawyers to come in and really do that. So we did do that, and so that also took some time, right? Because writing that contract and looking through the legal considerations took some time. So, I wish we had kind of started working on the MVP a little sooner to some degree, but at the end of the day, we learned a lot. We're going through this manual process in 2019.
And what was the, if it's possible to mention, what was the scope of the MVP? What did you want to achieve with it?
Well, the main thing is to have this MVP where we could onboard the ISA customer so they can apply for their student loan refinancing, and then also the investor. So we have the platform and dashboards for the investors to see when they invest their capital, what does that look like, how the fund is growing, and they're able to have like a wallet concept so they can withdraw funds, put more funds in, and so on. So those were some of the basic parameters we wanted to build. And then things changed a little bit in 2020. As we all know, 2020 was a very, very unique year.
Yeah.
And that also changed how we pivoted into certain other areas.
By the way, did COVID affected your project a lot, or there are some companies who actually earn a lot from the COVID. Was it your case, or it was vice versa?
No, I think as bad as COVID is, and obviously our thoughts and prayers are always with the people that are dealing with it. As I just had COVID too, so I know what it feels like. I just recovered from it myself. But I think for us as a business, it's going to prove to be a good thing, because it's really going to show a lot of people that there is so much uncertainty in the job market, and what can happen. COVID is a pandemic, but financial crises happen all the time. Downturns in the economy happen all the time, and the way the ISA works, it really protects people on the downside. So I think that's going to be a huge thing for us. Even for investors, a lot of investors had to deal with all types of volatility in the different financial markets. And our fund is very different because everything is based on investing in people's income, and incomes tend to be more stable and growing over time. So it makes like our fund like a fixed income, but with returns that are closer to equities, which I think is going to be another thing that we can really highlight for investors and really position this thing to grow in 2021. And that what we really did in because of COVID was we accelerated the growth of our resources marketplace, so we can actually help people find jobs if they lose their jobs, and offer them career counseling, job boards, recruitment, and other services. So that's something that Sean initially started working on, and with some other people in the team as well, so we can really build that out. And then we augmented that with like wellness resources and credit and finances and other things too. So we can really provide a comprehensive set of resources to people as they deal with their normal career, but also because of COVID, because obviously with COVID so many people are hurting, and our resources marketplace is available to everybody.
I loved your story about guys arguing about different roles and different people interacting with the system. I wonder what it was like when you were choosing the technology solution for the project. Was it like same kind of arguing, or it was easy peasy for you to pick the technology?
I was just going to say on the technology side, we were a little more in agreement, especially Akash and I kind of have a similar programming background. So that really helped us out a lot when we were choosing the technology.
Definitely, I think what's going on now in terms of transitioning away from the MVP and into the next version, there's all types of agreement, and Bill has come on as well, and he's added a lot to the equation. But in the beginning, we were using the Zoho suite of applications, even going back into the early parts, like using some like CRM and some of the other software. But it did take us a little bit of time to grasp the concept that Zoho had a application called Creator, which we could use to actually build the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So we did have to go back and forth a little bit and kind of feel that out. And I know like Sean and Akash, I don't know if, Akash, if you did it or not, but I think Sean, you definitely got certified in Creator to kind of learn that properly. But once we figured that out, then that process became a lot simpler. And I think these guys did an amazing job of executing on building that MVP. And really, honestly, I would have to say that was the first time where me as a CEO, I took a back seat and let them really kind of drive the process and let them build this thing out, and they really came through with shining colors.
Was it a like conscious decision to have like a Zoho Creator as a first step, and then replace it with the custom solution, or it just happened like this? Because what I've heard, or what we face a lot in our agency, that people start immediately from creating something sophisticated in their minds, instead of like having simple solution to check their idea, to verify their concept, and then move on with something more complicated.
Yeah, I maybe being more old school for me, it's more. I just want to be very methodical about this, because technology is amazing, and I think by the time we finish with this thing, we're going to have an amazing platform from a technology perspective. But in the beginning, you have to really validate the concept and prove the concept, and take it one step at a time. So for me, Zoho became somewhat of a no-brainer, because it allowed us to do something without spending a bunch of resources, financial resources, and to do it as quickly as possible too, to bring something to to make like a live product as soon as possible. So that was sort of my thinking. But now going forward, yeah, it's very clear that Zoho is not going to be sufficient, and we're going to need to do this outside.
I remember too in those early days, we actually had the discussion like, should we do our own custom product or build with Zoho Creator? But eventually it came down to just Zoho Creator made it really easy and really quick to develop our MVP.
And how long did it take for you and Akash to deliver the MVP actually?
From conceptualizing to actually delivering it, I guess it was pretty quick process. So we took I guess 3 to 4 weeks, and we actually had something in our hand.
One quick point, but I think the reason was because they knew the product inside out. Like we spent a year working on this product, working on all aspects of the product. So when your developers know the business side of it and know how the product would work, then yeah, I think it becomes a lot simpler.
So guys, can you please name some of the biggest challenges that you faced during the development process?
Or after?
Or after, yes.
When I joined, and when Zoho was, but when there was already this plan to migrate over to an application we're going to code from scratch and having the discussions about all the architecture. There's a lot of discussion going on back and forth, which is good, about what should the product be able to do, set it up. But always this question about what can we do now, what needs to be done now, versus how can we set it up now so it's scalable in the future. Of course, you can try to, there's always this balance between efficiency and cost and keeping things cheap, as cheap as possible, but maybe then you have problems later with scaling. So it's this very thin line between maybe having more cost now, but saving cost later down the road because you can more easily scale. Or also a lot of discussions about architecture. What do we use? How do we set up the app? Is it a container? Is it an application sitting somewhere? How do we run it? Is it a task? Is it something running continuously? So there's, I think the biggest challenges are um, not aggressively discussing, but constructively discussing and constructively trying to find a solution that satisfies everybody, but without pushing for an ego. And at the end of the day, pushing for the right solution that brings everything forward.
That's probably the true for every project.
Yeah, and even now, I think another problem too is what features do we want to have on this new product we're building? Like, what features are necessary? Which ones are like nice to have, and then which ones are just going to take too long to develop? So, struggling with those problems as well.
By the way, guys, maybe you can tell us how do you prioritize features?
So we started developing some documents so that everything will be documented and which can give us a better idea. So what priorities could be in the entire process. So we started with the business requirement document, discussed all the main requirements and how those will be in terms of user interface and then what features for every requirement. So that standard way of thinking kind of help us to design all the process and prioritizing in the development phase.
Do you collect any user data in order to, I don't know, somehow help you prioritize tasks?
I mean, we've had conversations with users, but now it's more we're starting to do it in a more formal way, so we can really collect data in a more formal, organized manner, and make those and learn from that, obviously, and make the product enhancements down the road. From a features perspective, I guess the obvious thing is just we need to replicate what we are offering in the MVP in this new application. So that's the absolute basic thing. And then beyond that, the other interesting thing for us is going to be the resources marketplace has almost become its own independent sort of offering. So we still have to do a lot of thinking through about that. Like, how do we make this resources marketplace very viable for users and make it something that even if you don't want the ISA from us or don't want to invest in our fund, you just want to use this marketplace, even in that kind of user, we want to be able to give them a lot so that they would see a real value add there. So that's something that we're going to learn a lot from, and we're starting a marketing project in about a couple of days to really flesh that out over the next couple of months.
Mhm.
Okay, so any lessons learned? So if you go back, would you guys change anything in your approach?
I would say probably do it a little bit faster. I think we could have done it at maybe 3-4 months sooner in terms of getting this MVP process going. That's one thing for sure. Besides that, maybe we kind of lucked into Zoho because we were using it and turned out they had this whole creator application. So I'll just take that as a blessing. In terms of kind of figuring it out on our own, we sort of bumped into it. Those were the couple of things I would say. But Sean, Akash, Bill?
But I think it took us a little too long to realize what Creator can do. And we spent a lot of time kind of discussing how we can bring the application online, because before the process was very manual, where people would fill out a form and we'd contact them to get information. So like we had Creator there, which we could create this online application to take care of everything for us, and we just didn't even realize it. So I think recognizing that option was there too would have helped us a lot early on.
Yeah, definitely exploring all the tools in your disposal completely rather than checking out other places. I guess that's what we missed initially. So we even tried using WordPress plugin to start with our portal, and then we realized no, there is a creator which is way better tool to start with your MVP. So I guess exploring tools at your disposal uh, entirely first and then moving forward. I guess that's what we learn differently.
Yeah, I think from my side, also not starting here, but also coming from another startup previously, I've learned that project management to me personally is a bit annoying. There's like to me a certain natural slackiness to do project management and to break it down all these tasks, but even in my previous startup I used to work for, it proved to be very valuable. We also had a project management platform. Everybody was online, but nobody was updating tasks. So our boss constantly had to remind us, guys, use the platform. And it really helps if you just see it even as a very organized version of brainstorming, just jotting down some notes, just jotting down tasks, because the task is there and is visible to you, your brain is being reminded that this is a good process that still needs to be done. And also just thinking about how to break it down, how to break the big project of the Django app, and then what is this part of the app? What is this part of the app? What does it have to be connected to? What does the user have to see? What does need to happen in the background for that to be able to happen? So just asking these questions and then turning these into subtasks in some sort of project management tool really has helped, I think, to get a hold of how much needs to be done. And maybe the wall of tasks then suddenly motivates you, okay, we need to start working, we need to get this done. So that really has I've improved that here even more to accept project management as a vital task of all of this.
I wonder what you guys learn from the MVP about your end users that you are bringing to a new product that you are building right now.
I think the thing that surprised me about the MVP or Zoho Creator was, um, like from the web development world, you like there's this Wix, right? Wix allows you to develop sites very quickly and make them look very pretty. That's how I thought Creator would be. Is that we'd be able to make a pretty application and the functionality would be very limited. But it kind of turned out the other way, where there's lot more ability to build functionality and so on, but the appearance, the user interface, it's very, very limited. From even basic things like not even being able to use our own colors, our brand colors and things like that. So, and with financial services, one of the things we learned in early discussions was, how something looks. It goes a long way to create, credibility with the user and trust with the user, because in a financial services application, trust is so important. So at least in my mind, that was like, that was a huge recognition, and that we have to switch. We got to get out of this thing as soon as possible and build this thing so we create that trust.
By the way, regarding trust and users, how do you educate your users and encourage them to start using your and trust your platform?
Yeah, we're experimenting with different things right now. Like in our manual process, we had a whole process where we would actually talk to everybody when we're giving them a quote, explain the quote, and so on. But now we want to build a touchless process as much as possible, in the application. So I know Sean worked with the marketing team to. Now we've kind of developed some videos that we're using in the code process to be able to start, giving them the ability to learn as they go on their own about different aspects of the ISA and so on. So the education component is going to be a big thing for us. We worked a lot in last year also on changing our website in 2020 to make the website a lot more a lot more user friendly, take a lot of feedback that we got to improve the language, the messaging, again, with the idea of creating that trust, and so on. And I think there's a lot more learnings that we're going to do along the way to continue to improve that. But education and awareness about the product is going to go a long way towards, dealing with this issue.
Just building off of that too, is those conversations we would have with the customer were really insightful and helping us figure out what we need to focus on when educating people. A lot of times we'd get the same questions over and over. And, one thing that I found really interesting is even though people applied for this income share agreement, they were still expecting like a loan. Like they would come and ask, oh, but what's the interest rate? How much am I going to pay in the end? When in reality, it's an income share agreement that's based on their income. So there is no interest rate, and we can't really answer those other questions about how much they'll pay. So it really helped us realize that education was vital to our success. Is like, how do we tell people what this product is and get them to understand the concept and stop comparing it to a loan, which isn't their fault because that's just what they're used to. And, loans are so prevalent today.
One project to just build on this point that Akash has been working on, and from his perspective is pretty much done, which is this calculator, like to compare the ISA with the loan. And we've gone through various iterations of this calculator. But the learning has been that, the calculator gives you the financial picture, but in a certain vacuum, right? Like, based on certain parameters and so on. But that doesn't tell the story of the ISA. It doesn't tell the story of the downside protection and so many things that are in the ISA that really make it stand out against a loan. So we have not rolled that out because we're still kind of figuring out how do we tell that story. And now I think we're getting closer to developing more of like a lifestyle calculator that tells people how your life is different with an ISA versus a loan, and kind of taking that approach and making it a like a visual app on its own almost to really tell that story is going to go a long way. And I think if we can pull that off, it'll be like probably the first time an ISA provider is able to tell the story, properly. And I think those are little things that we're learning along the way, right? Because our product is so different. How do we really communicate this message? How do we make users understand and customers understand? It's almost like you have to teach the customers how to look at you differently than, your competitor who's just offering another refinancing loan solution.
And now, when you are with the Techstars, what are your next moves? What you going to do?
Yeah, so Techstars begins with what they call mentor madness. So they kind of connect you with maybe, I don't know, 60, 70 different mentors that, kind of bring all different perspectives from business to tech to marketing to, for us, financials, finance, etc. So we're going to go through that process and identify a few, 3 to 5 key mentors that we're going to work with. And then kind of working with them, then identify those 2-3 key areas that we want to really focus on during the accelerator program. Now, the one thing that I'm pretty sure we're going to work on, as one of the leading things is going to be how do we seed the fund? Because the fund is the supply of capital we need to do deals, right? So if we don't have the supply of capital, then, we can't even market aggressively. Yeah, we can get a bunch of people to apply, but if you can't fund them, right? So that's going to be one of the key areas. I think what Sean, Bill, and Akash are working on is going to be the other big thing, is to really now kind of go over this whole roadmap of the product and our strategy for, kind of taking this out of MVP to the next level. So we'll hopefully get that validated, our business model validation, and really working on product market fit, which is, learning from customers in a scientific way. So those are the things that I think we're going to be focused on with Techstars, but you never know. A lot of companies going to Techstars and pivot and come out with something completely different. So we'll see how that breaks out.
Yeah, good luck, guys, with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so in your opinion, what are some of the best strategies to quickly validate the idea and build an MVP for a fintech startup? Could you please maybe tell us more about your give some advice from your perspective, from your personal experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, focus on the fin part of fintech first. The finance part of it. Like, understand the core finance business that you have. How does that work? How do you make money? What's the process for your customer? And even if that's a very manual process to learn that, my advice would be to focus on that first. Because once you understand that, once you have that down, then building the technology around it becomes much easier.
I think, yeah, what Farooq says makes complete sense. But once you have that jot down, then my my preference would be go ahead with something like create a low code platform where you scratch up your app and you jot down those manual processes and convert it into something visible for a customer, so that you can quickly onboard them. You can have initial test runs. You can test your product, how everything is working for your customer. You can take their feedback and then actually move on to your next accelerated complete technology platform.
I think Akash kind of took the words out of my mouth. So I'll also just say, it's really important too to just find mentors, people who can really, who've kind of gone through the process before, who have a little bit of expertise in the area, who can help you out. They've been also very vital for helping us getting up and running.
I think just to add maybe one more point to it, something that reminded me of my business challenge during my studies. If you try to validate a very vague idea, just ask yourself, why is it still undone? Is there maybe a problem with it? And then when you start doing research and you notice that it hasn't been done because of limitations in legal areas, or maybe companies do not want to share resources, companies do not want to pool resources or something, then you have already, you have invalidated your own idea, but that's also part of the process. So that's what I would just add.
Yeah, I guess maybe one other final point regarding fintech specifically is really understand your regulatory and legal issues, because that's hugely important. Every jurisdiction is different in terms of how the legalities and regulations work, but understanding those is a huge thing for any financial product.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah. Thank you guys for joining today's podcast, and good luck with the product that you make. Finger crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okie dokie. Yeah, bye bye. It was good to have you aboard.